Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we preview the Detroit Lions Week 3 matchup with the Baltimore Ravens on Monday Night Football. We're going to hit on all the major storylines and final thoughts coming out of the Lions' Week 2 victory against the Bears before taking a closer look at the Ravens. We're also going to hear from a reporter who covers Baltimore, plus share insights of our own. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is Trevor Nowaski, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Angers, a former Michigan High School Coach of the Year, as well as Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He's a scouting and training director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, we're doing this a day later than normal, but that's due to primetime Monday Night Football. Good to have you here.
Hey, happy Thursday, Wednesday.
Something like that, exactly. And joining both of us off of a fresh, busy sports schedule himself is the sports writer of the year for Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated, the senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle, James Cook. James, good to have you here too.
Good to be here as always.
And as usual, our show is brought to you by Roaster Jack Coffee Company in Traverse City, Michigan. Since 1999, Roaster Jack has been selecting and roasting fine coffees from smallholder farms around the world, creating exquisite blends and single origin beans for your morning ritual, whether brewing your perfect morning shot or waking up the entire crew. And the only thing better than great coffee, folks, is great coffee with a discount. Visit roasterjack.com. Use the code LIONS. You get 20% off your next shipment. Roaster Jack Coffee Company. Be a hero, brew great coffee, and go Lions. All right, guys, as we get started, let's wrap up some final thoughts from the Bears game, any other storylines that came out this week, extra thoughts on that win over the Bears. James, what did you want to start with?
I just think that the more and more I think about this, I think that the Lions were just looking to send a message to Ben Johnson that and the Bears that, you guys don't run the North like Brian Poles said. It goes through us, and just keeping going forward on fourth down in the fourth quarter when they were up 3 scores. Not pulling their starters when the Bears had put in Tyson Bagent, even, and kind of thrown the white flag, and the Lions were like, nope, we're just going to keep doing this. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. And Ben Johnson kind of, I think, acknowledged that a little bit in his press conference, saying, hey, that's what they do. They go for it on fourth down. It was interesting, though, that he would not say Jared Goff's name during the press conference. He just kept calling him their quarterback, which was very interesting. But we've seen a lot of teams do that, off and on through. So, but one interesting, really good stat that I saw, which is how many days it's been since a team lost 2 games in a row in the regular season. And this was from a couple of days ago. The Lions are at 1,052 days since the last time they lost 2 regular season games in a row. The next highest team was 618, and that's the Eagles. The Bears, of course, when this was come out, was 2.
Of course. Yeah. Well, I want to say, it was just really, really nice to see the Lions put up so many points on offense, because it gives you hope in games when you're trailing by a lot. As I was telling somebody else the other day, if the Lions can put up 35 points, you can give up 28 points and still win a football game. But if you can't score 14 and you give up 17, you're going to lose a football game. And so it gives you more room on error on the defense. And we've known what this offense can do, and it was just nice to see it happen. And against a team that had very high expectations, even though they were missing some players on defense, they still had a great defensive coordinator and, again, had some high expectations. You guys, another thing I finally got to see, I was at the game, so didn't get to see much of the film or anything. And I still haven't watched probably 10% as much film as Coach watches. But I saw the JMO 64-yard pass, and what really stood out to me is what really opened that up is Isaac Tesla. He took two defenders with him and cleared out the area, the whole side of the field for JMO after the catch that left it wide open. And so, everyone's like, well, you're going to get him involved more. You're going to get him involved more. Coach, just because someone's not catching the ball doesn't mean they're not involved in this Lions offense. Tell the people.
No, it's the truth. You know how many I didn't look at his snap count because I was looking at the defense guy's snap count, but yeah, he's doing some things. He lined up offside too once. So I mean,
Yeah.
again, the Lions baby step. Take their time with people. They don't put them into a position to fail. They put them in to be a position to have positives all the time, so that there's no setbacks with them. So yeah, he's going to keep getting more. But hey, Raymond had a big catch in the game too. So we just got some great skill guys, and his time is coming.
Yeah, and again, I just was impressed that both Bears defenders went with him. And
Mhm.
I'm like, all right, well, it's showing that they're starting to pay attention to him, which, whether he gets the ball or not, it's going to open things up for other people. Um, Guys, Jared Goff named NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Should not be a shock when you're 23 of 28, 334 yards, 5 touchdowns, 156 rating. And then if we're looking at career stats, this is the 5th time in his career he has led a team to 50 points or more, 3 of them with the Lions. That ties some guy named Peyton Manning. And if he gets one more, he would tie some guy named Drew Brees, and he's currently 3 off the leader, Tom.
Mhm.
And so Jared Goff's good enough for Detroit. That's great to see him do that. Guys, any other thoughts you had coming out of the Bears game? Any other headlines that caught your eye this week, Coach?
Just a lot to build on. A lot of things. I mean, I put some videos out on, because last week they brought up that Wingo he was ahead of the curve or ahead of his rehab time, and then he played 37 snaps, and man, did he look good. So we're definitely going to need him this week. So that was a really good positive to see that. So, and the younger guys got a lot of positive stuff for the younger guys, the rookies, and stuff to build on for this week. They're going to have to play. They're going to have to improve a ton more for this week's game.
That they will. Coach Campbell even talked about that. James, any other thoughts about last week before we start moving forward?
Yeah, the little film I did get to watch was mostly centered on Brian Branch, and man, just the versatility of everything that he can do lets them do so much on defense, man. And he was so good last week. The roughing penalty aside, he was pretty much perfect. It just did so many good things, and you know, I just think that they just have to keep doing those type of things. They have to take something away from Baltimore, but we'll get into that later. But I mean, they were able to contain Caleb Williams and not let him run a whole lot, so that bodes well, hopefully.
All right. Well, a reminder as we move forward here, tell your friends and family about the show. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all major streaming platforms. Video version is on YouTube, folks. We'd love to hear your comments and thoughts, and love those likes and subscribes as well. Social media, you can find us mostly on Twitter and Instagram at NTSOL Podcast. All right, there's been some roster moves. Shane Zylstra went to IR. Linebacker Monty Rice was released from the practice squad. The Lions added offensive lineman Tristan Colon to the active roster. Ross Dwelly, I believe how you say his name. He's a tight end. They added him to the practice squad. And then the guy catching a lot of attention is the wide receiver / quarterback, Malik Cunningham, to the practice squad. Previously with Baltimore, people asked Dan if he's going to help emulate Lamar Jackson. That was the initial logical conclusion. If you remember earlier in the week, Dan said Kyle Allen was going to be doing some of that, and that got some chuckles. And Dan obviously said Kyle's not going to do exactly what Lamar can do, but that was the role. But Dan also pointed out that that Malik Cunningham is expected to play some wide receiver for them on that practice squad and do that. James, what do you make about these roster adjustments here?
Yeah, Tristan Colon joining the team makes sense. He was kind of ahead of Kingsley, I think, coming into or during the preseason, and that elbow injury uh, kind of changed things around, obviously. So that gives them that veteran backup center that they want. Somebody that, if Glasgow got hurt, or if one of the other guards got hurt and they had to move Glasgow to guard, that they could put Cologne in there, and they think they would be fine. So Ross Dwelly's, he's a pretty good blocking tight end. He's a veteran. He's been in the NFL for, I think, like 8 years or something. So he's kind of been around and done that a lot. Not a huge threat in the passing game or anything, but I mean, we saw in the Bills game tonight that their third string blocking tight end catch a touchdown.
Yeah, and it's a bummer to see Zilstra go to IR. And that's the second tight end that we've lost this season. So it's good to get somebody on the team right away to start working them in and getting some reps. So, Coach, anything else you got on those roster additions or adjustments?
No, just love bringing the guy in that probably knows a little bit about somebody's offense. It's totally awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of the reverse when, like, remember the Minnesota Vikings grabbed David Blau off waivers like right before the season started? Yeah. Well, let's look at the injury report. Let's start with the good news. Trevor Nowatzki, Sione Vaki, full practice. That is very encouraging to hear because those guys have been out and they can contribute. I really want to see Vaki in the return game. I would love to see him back there. And I don't know if you stay with Sailors or if you can put a different guy back there, if you're going to keep Grant Stewart back there. But I felt like there hasn't been a lot of explosion. I guess we can get into that later. Most teams haven't been that explosive on the return game. The Lions are kind of like right in the middle, though. So it doesn't look spectacular, but it's right in the middle. So having those guys full practice is good. Kirby Joseph and DJ Reed both limited with listed as knee things on the thing. See your linebacker Jack Campbell and Taylor Decker, shoulder, ankle, and then shoulder. No practice. Decker could just be a rest day as he gets. And then Davenport, injury, chest. No update today on him. Dan said it would be the end of the week. We know earlier in the week they said they were getting second opinions. You don't get a second opinion if everything's looking good usually. So, Coach, we'll start with you. Thoughts on the injury report, and then we'll come to James.
Yeah, it's great. We're getting those guys back. The other thing on the Davenport chest, what is it? Ankle? Is it shoulder?
Shoulder, yeah.
I think we had a running back last year, number 5, that was done for the season. But then, God, for some reason, I thought he played in the playoff game. Isn't that weird? So, anyways, I'm not really concerned with that till Dan Campbell comes out and says he's done. But the thing is, second opinions. First is cautious. Second, third opinions usually the ones that say, dude, you can still go. Or you have to sit a couple weeks or things like that. So, again, we can't waste a whole lot of energy on that, but I think we're going to be okay.
All right, James, how about you on the reports?
Yeah, it was interesting that the first injury report that they put out, Reed wasn't on it, and then they revised it about an hour later and put Reed on it. And said that they had forgotten to include him on there. So that was interesting. It's listed as a knee for him, but he was still limited, so he practiced in some way. So that's good. Him being added late is not a good thing. Kirby Joseph not being on there is not a great thing. But hopefully getting Trevor and Sione back will really add to the special teams. I want to see Vaki play some running back too. I really want to see that. Just to add another guy to that. And then Decker, I think, is just rest at this point, veteran rest for him. We'll see with Davenport. Jack Campbell, I don't seem too worried after he played last week, and he played pretty decently. I think that he's probably going to be a go this week too.
Jack Campbell?
Yeah.
And so the Davenport's the big thing, right? That's the thing that we're all worried about because availability is a very important ability. He got the sack, but went down. He came in and out multiple times. Al-Qadim Muhammad played solid football when he was in there and did a really good job. And again, the Lions, you would presume, have vetted a lot of different options here. And they made a couple waiver claims, guys. We know that right at the end of training camp. They brought in Tyrus Wheat and Tyler Lacey. Both of those guys have been getting work in, probably learning the system. And those could be guys that one of them might be brought up this week. If Davenport's not able to go, I would expect at least one of those guys is brought up, and we can talk more about that as well. I guess, James, before we move on, do you think that is a possible option to bring one of those guys up if Davenport's not able to go?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think Wheat's kind of the more natural defensive end of the two. So he would probably be that guy. But I would think that if Davenport's not going, then I think, Aquadine Muhammad is probably your starting defensive end opposite Hutch. And then
Sure.
you're looking for a backup guy. They've got those tackles like Wingo that they can move out and play as a big defensive end. So that's a nice luxury to have those pieces that can move around like that.
Speaking coach's language over there.
We can keep talking, my boy Wing. And the film I put out there too, guys. He played nose, he played the end position, he played nose in the three front. They're moving him all over, he's got.
Yeah.
I can't wait. And I'm not going to brag. I'm just saying I think he's gonna help us. That's it. I'm leaving it alone.
Plus coach's other boy, Pat O'Connor.
Yes, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then let's move to previewing the Lions Monday Night Football matchup with the Baltimore Ravens. To get us started, here's my interview with Pete Gilbert from WBAL TV out of Baltimore. I'm joined today by Pete Gilbert. He hosts Ravens Wrap Up on Sunday nights. Pete also anchors weekends at WBAL TV in Baltimore. Pete, thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule and getting ready to preview the Lions-Ravens game coming up this week with me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And it's a weird one in that it's a home game for the Ravens on Monday night. This is their 33rd Monday Night Football game. It'll be their 10th at home. They always go on the road. They haven't this is 5 in a row have been on the road. It's just one of those oddities of the NFL scheduling. So Baltimore is very fired up to have the home primetime on a Monday night. It is a rarity.
All right. Well, we previewed the Lions-Ravens matchup a couple years ago, and that one didn't go anything the way most people were expecting, you and I included. But 2 years have gone by since that time. Talk to me about the Ravens. How are they different? How's the team changed in the last year or two to today?
Certainly, it's now, well, then it was year 1 with Todd Monk, and now it's year 3 as offensive coordinator. And so he and Lamar Jackson have really developed a chemistry and understanding, and Todd has given him really the keys to run the offense. When it was Greg Roman beforehand, Lamar had he was given very little ability to make changes at the line of scrimmage, even when it comes to sliding protections, to change the plays. They just kept, this is what it's going to be. Run it. And then you're making the decision whether or not to give or to keep. But by and large, this is the play. Now it's up to him at the line and to do a lot of different things. And so that Lamar loves that. I think any quarterback would, right? The ability to see it and make the changes. And Todd has been really good at developing their passing game. Just the passing concepts that had been pretty rudimentary are now quite sophisticated and impressive. And Lamar has the best really targets to throw to in his career right now in terms of Zay Flowers is your number 1, Rashad Bateman, who hasn't really had anything thrown to him yet. They scored 40 and 41 points, so it's not been an issue. And then DeAndre Hopkins is very happy to show people that he is not washed for his 10 to 15 plays a game. It's all good. He's like, he'll go be spectacular now and again. And then there's Derrick Henry. He was not there 2 years ago when the Lions came to town. And I believe there really is no greater stress point against the defense than Lamar putting it in his belly, and you got to figure out what he's going to do. Is he going to keep it or are you going to give it? You have to make a decision. And much credit to the Cleveland Browns who decided they were going to stop it all and make him throw, period. And so Derrick Henry, when the game was completely out of reach, the Browns decided Derrick Henry is not getting squat. Okay. Now the Ravens were unconcerned with that. It's an unselfish group, which is pretty key to I think to where they want to get to go. There's plenty of things that would have concerns with, and we'll talk about those later. But that to me is the biggest difference right now. Lamar has the keys to the offense, and it's really he has more at his disposal to be successful than really at any time in his career.
All right, and you've already hit on a couple of those things. One was they put up 40 points and 41 points each of their first 2 games. Those are incredible numbers. That shows the offense was clicking right away. But you also hit on the other thing is week one, I watched that entire game. Derrick Henry was running everywhere. Cleveland really shut him down in week two, or the game plan dictated things differently. Even though they scored more points but had significantly fewer rushing yards, what was the difference in week two? I mean, I know it's a grudge match with Cleveland whenever they play, but from a game plan, did you see anything different?
So I oftentimes in the divisional matchups, and it's interesting, despite the Browns not being very good for most of their existence, they have played the Ravens very tough. Going into that game, they had won 4 out of 7. It's just one of those kind of things where and Myles Garrett is an absolute beast, a game wrecker, and he has a complement of players around it too. It's a good defense. I mean, that's a defense that held the Bengals to 7 yards in the second half in week one, which is a number I still can't believe is true, but it is. And that was when Joe Burrow was healthy. So they're talented, and that was their game plan. It was much more like, we are not going to let the Ravens run the ball. And I also did think it was a little curious and odd, even when they had first and goal at the half-yard line, they threw the ball 4 consecutive times. I thought Todd decided, he's like, we're fine. These are the looks. We're going away from it. We're going to throw the ball. And there were some miscommunications early on. I also thought that that stress I talked about, you got to pick Derek or Lamar. They ran one read option in the game. It was a weird, they went away from that and decided there was straight handoffs, by and large. So I'm not sure why that was. I look forward to talking with Todd later this week when we get an opportunity. So that was a different approach. But the key was that they have the ability to throw the ball in a way that is really problematic, so that even if you decide to make them one-dimensional, that one dimension leaves Lamar Jackson with the highest passer rating right now in the NFL, and actually all time in the NFL. If you go higher now than Aaron Rodgers, he is number 1 all time.
Wow, that is incredible. I mean, he put up some real incredible numbers last year. We already know that. And so, all right, the Ravens, what is their biggest strength? We're only 2 weeks in. It's probably Lamar Jackson, but as a team, like, what do they do the best, you think?
Pretty much, when Lamar starts, you're going to get 30. That's almost just, you lock it in. There's going to be 30 points scored by the team. So that's something you just know going in. If we're going to win, you're going to have to score 30 plus. So that's one of the things. Defensively, their strength is there are so many veteran, really good, if not superstars, close to it. Up front, you have Travis Jones and Justin Madubuike that are, Madubuike can be a sack guy. He can be, an edge setter, but he's really a defensive, and he's 290 pounds of just all muscle. Travis Jones, each running back's at 330 pounds and is incredibly quick. So they're really tough up front. Roquan Smith looks like Roquan Smith of 2021 against the Browns. He had 15 tackles, 3 for a loss, fumble recovery for a touchdown. He was diagnosing everything. He didn't miss a tackle, and he missed a couple of tackles against the Bills that were key, and that bugged the tar out of him all week long, and he played his best game as a Raven. And then you go to the back end where you have Kyle Hamilton, who was just paid as the highest safety by a lot in the NFL. And because they were able to draft a first-round safety in Malachi Starks out of Georgia and start him right away, and they have enough D-backs where they can rotate around. They allow Kyle Hamilton to play safety, to kind of play nickel, to play linebacker. He's all over the field as a hybrid guy that really puts Zach Orr he can do whatever he wants with him. Zach, the defensive coordinator. So that defensively is their strength. And then offensively, you don't know who's going to get the ball. Like I said, talking about Rashad Bateman has barely done anything. Mark Andrews has done 2 catches so far this year. Isaiah Likely hasn't played yet. He's really their best tight end. He's broke a foot in the beginning of training camp, but he may be back actually this week. He was ramping up and starting to practice last week. You had Devontae Walker catch 2 touchdowns last week. He didn't play an offensive snap in week 1. You had Tylan Wallace catch a touchdown. He didn't have a reception coming into the game. So there's 3 of the 4 touchdown passes. And so you can try and game plan, well, we're going to shut him down, or we're going to shut him down. This team is unselfish, and Lamar is determined. I don't care if you didn't get the ball today. That's not my problem. I'm going where the ball needs to go, and they've all bought into that.
All right. Well, the Ravens are 2 points from being 2-0 right now. The Lions have a very difficult schedule. Most people are aware of that. It's been commented on ad nauseum. But I would put this game as probably one of their three most difficult games on their schedule. Baltimore is that good, and they're playing that well, and their offense is, started the season like there was no offseason. They're that good and ready to go. And you've already highlighted how good that defense can be. We saw them get turnovers against Cleveland as well. So let me ask you, if there is a weakness on this team, if there is an area that has any vulnerabilities, what might that area be?
For certain, the closing out games against quality teams has been an issue. We saw that in Buffalo. They had a 15-point lead with 5 minutes to play and lost. And it wasn't with 2 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions. They scored 3 times in those 5 minutes. So the ability to finish games has been an issue. And they have, I believe it's 6 times since 2022, blown fourth quarter double-digit leads. So it's almost, and it's never been the same thing in terms specifically, like, was it an interception? Was it a fumble? Was it a penalty? Was it it's been different things, but it's all been tied to a bigger picture of just not doing the fundamentals properly when it mattered most against good teams. Now, last week they felt good. They had that lead and they closed things out. So they felt good. But Joe Flacco led Cleveland wasn't going to score 16 points in 5 minutes. And they struggled to score 16 a game. So that wasn't going to happen. So that would be really the only thing you look at and think of as it's a general weakness, because roster-wise is as good as anybody has in the NFL. And you just go top to bottom, and it's like, yeah, there's dudes everywhere, and they have good coaching, a strong foundation. There's plenty of people in Baltimore that would argue with me about coaching that, you've had a head coach here for 18 seasons, and there are enough things you can pick at the nits to say if you don't like him. But I mean, he's got a good staff. John is willing to listen to people. The players listen to him. They like him. It's a good foundation. If I were the Lions, coming in this one, I think overall just like crap is that Lamar Jackson against the NFC is 24-2 in his career. And in home primetime games, since John Harbaugh took over, the Ravens are 22-3. So they just generally don't lose these games at home in primetime, and certainly not with Lamar Jackson at the quarterback.
All right. Well, we know Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. We know what they bring and we know what they can do. I don't know if the answer is Zay Flowers, who we saw go great in week 1, have a little different role in week 2 because he had a lot of catches. Excuse me, he had a lot of catches and all that, but you still had other guys contributing for those touchdowns. But is there somebody who might be a difference maker that isn't Lamar, isn't Derrick, that maybe Lions fans should keep their eye on? And it could be offense, could be on the defense, someone who you think will have an impact in the game.
So if you think about looking, especially at Jared Goff throwing, 5 touchdowns that he threw last week, and can be, and he throws them in different ways. Somebody who really stepped up and plays better at home for the Ravens is Nate Wiggins. He's in his second year. He's a first-round pick cornerback out of Clemson. It's funny if you look at like passer rating against him at home, it's like 38. On the road, it's like 92.
Wow.
It's a start. Now it's a second year, so it's not exactly a huge sample size, but he has played better at home, and he is playing with a level of confidence that now he gets it. He's had that year under his belt. He started all of last year, and he has so many veterans around him to help guide, and I think that he is somebody who is capable of jumping that pass, reading it, and then he's just athletic enough to maybe make a house call. He was 5 yards short of making one last week on a 60-yard interception return. But Nate's a guy who could be definitely a difference maker.
All right. Well, if the Ravens are going to beat the Lions this week, because again, we saw week 1, week 2 for the Lions, very different games. What's it going to take for the Ravens to win this game?
When they are at their best, it's obviously they're going to score the points. It's almost just you can pretty much book it that they're going to score 4 touchdowns. That's kind of the way they are. If to make sure for them to get it done, they're going to have to also, I think, add a turnover or two to that. And when we've looked at when they've struggled against quality teams, and the Lions are one of those, and particularly if you look at the playoffs, the last 4 playoff games the Ravens have lost, they have turned it over 10 times, and they have not forced a single turnover. So and last year in Buffalo, they lose by 2. They turned over 3 times, didn't turn it, or they turned over 3, and the Bills didn't turn it over once. So if that, if it's going to go badly, it's because the Ravens turned it over and didn't get any. And so, but if they get 1 or 2, party's over.
All right. Well, you've highlighted how well that offense is. We've seen it in the first 2 weeks, and the defense has held the Browns to 17 points. What do the Lions have to do well? What's it going to take for them if they're going to win this game? It's going to be because of what?
Yeah, they forced turnovers, they forced mistakes, and they stayed in touch late. So to put that question and doubt into the backs of the Ravens' mind, is this going to be a here we go again? We're up 7. We've got a ball with 4 minutes to go. We need to get a couple first downs, and you turn it over, or something like that. That would be bad. Or you know what? The Ravens have a rookie kicker. I mean, and he's a guy filling the shoes of arguably the greatest kicker in the history of the NFL, and Justin Tucker. So they've got Tyler Loop, a rookie out of Arizona, who in his first game had, goodness gracious, his first attempt was 52 yards in a windy night in Buffalo, and he drilled it. And he did miss an extra point in Buffalo. It's like, okay, that's, Justin Tucker went about 7 years without missing an extra point. So that, he made all of his kicks last week, looked very good. But, that he's a rookie. So that's something where that, okay, maybe you have a rookie punt returner, LeJante Wester, who looks better than what they've had in the last couple of years in terms of returning kicks. He almost did break one for a touchdown, but he's also maybe not going to make the best decisions just out of inexperience. Is he going to feel one that he shouldn't, or is he not going to feel one he should? That certainly would be a possibility. So I think in special teams, if it's going to go badly for the Ravens, there would be a special teams mistake or 2. The Ravens did block a punt last week, and it was the first time in 9 seasons for them to do so, and it set up a touchdown. So they are, they look better right now in special teams than they did last year. Special team, I mean, John Harbaugh came up as a special teams coach, and then that was really a hallmark. But the last couple of seasons, overall special teams had kind of been middle of the pack, which is after being really a top 5 group for most of his career. They spent a lot of time on special teams. So it's looked pretty good thus far, but there's a lot of young guys on it. And they lost a lot of special teams, guys that have been here for veteran, like Malik Harrison, the linebacker, signed with Pittsburgh. There are a couple guys like that have just been core guys that aren't there. So they've got new guys doing it. So we just aren't as sure as they certainly would like to be.
All right. Well, any final thoughts, any predictions, anything else you want to share about the Ravens team that Lions fans should know about?
Would you say I'm really looking forward to this game, especially after watching Detroit last week look like themselves again. And, I think, it's a sign of just kind of like what a Dan Campbell, when you think of what the culture and foundation he's built after an opener that I know he was like, what the heck was that? I know Green Bay is good, but come on, to come out against another division rival and do that to them. Very excited to see what they bring here, because it was 38-6 last time that Detroit came here. So, I know that they'll be itching. They remember that very well. And, as far as the Ravens, it's a veteran group. There's not a lot of surprises to it, other than you're not sure who might get the ball. But because they have the depth around, you may not know the names. They may not be first team all pros, but the talent is there, and the stars are very willing to share it. So if you're wondering why it's not just Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson, that's why.
Awesome, Pete. Thank you so much for the time and all these great insights about the Ravens team.
My pleasure. Anytime, Matthew.
Again, a big thank you to Pete Gilbert from WBAL TV out of Baltimore. Guys, Pete spoke with quite a bit of confidence about those Ravens, man, when I talked to him. And for good reason. They're playing really well. And again, some of the big takeaways, he's like, you just have to accept the fact the Ravens are going to score 4 touchdowns in a game. He's like, that's how good this offense is, So let's kind of look at how this team is, how they've looked so far. And, they don't have many weaknesses, especially as they've developed in the last couple of years under Todd Monken's system. So, Coach, let's start with you. You've done a little bit of a dive here. How have they looked this year compared to the last couple years? The last time the Lions played them was 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And or how have they looked to you this year?
Well, I've watched both games. I went back and watched some of the Cleveland game and stuff like that to see. Well, I basically went back seeing how Cleveland held Derrick Henry to his lowest fantasy football points of all time since he's been with the Ravens. So, I mean, that's important. Anyways, and Cleveland did a great job of bottom up. Cleveland did a great job of hitting him in the backfield, and not letting him go at that 265, I don't even know. He's got to weigh 300. Let's just go 300 pounds because he's a freaking monster. And so they're good. But the point with them is, another thing I found out, Lamar Jackson holds the high, what is like 4 seconds. What was it? This stat. Lamar Jackson has taken an extended drop back 4+ seconds on 22.1% of his total dropbacks. Think about that. So, because people are so worried about him running, they don't have a weakness on offense, guys. You know that. They don't have a weakness. I mean, we can talk about one of their guards or something like that. I think James knows something about that. But they could, if you shut Henry down, then Lamar's going to throw the ball. And, they got some good receivers. If you shut Lamar down, or, if you shut the pass down and shut the run down, Lamar's going to run. Now you got a guy who had 900 yards last year. So one big thing about Lamar that's changed since 2023, I believe, from the first time we played him, is he's throwing more of those medium routes, more than he did with the short behind the line of scrimmage routes, because he's developed into that elite quarterback, top 5 quarterbacks. And I didn't say running quarterback. I said top 5 quarterbacks. So it's an extremely scary football team. And I love that their guy says you got to count on the Ravens to score 4 touchdowns, because I'm counting on our Lions to score 4 touchdowns.
There you go. I mean, this is a very strong, potent team. And
Mhm.
I mean, the Ravens were 12-5, 13-4 each of the last 2 seasons. And it's early, but they might look better than either of those 2 teams from the last 2 years. And, it's also, like I said, the 3rd year in the system. Coach, I echo you on Lamar Jackson, the way he's playing. And again, quarterback, just lights out, playing great. James, what are you seeing out of Baltimore this year? 2nd year with Derrick Henry. He picked up where he left off in week 1. The Cleveland Browns changed their game plan week 2, but Baltimore still put up even more points. So I guess, what are you seeing out of the Ravens this year and compared to before?
I think it's a good sign that the Browns were able to kind of take Henry away. I mean, what he had, 22 yards, 23, something like that, low 20s on 11 carries. So that bodes well. I didn't see a team doing that to the Ravens this year. That just wasn't on the bingo card. And I thought that Derrick Henry is still the guy that we've known Derrick Henry to be for the last 8 years or whatever in the NFL. That's pretty much on almost unstoppable tank. So seeing Cleveland do that gives you good hope. I mean, I don't know. Are the Browns a better defense than the Lions? I don't think so. So if the Browns can do it, why can't Detroit do it? If you can take him away and make them a one-dimensional team, uh, that's got to play into the Lions' favor.
For sure. And that exactly the thing I thought was, it gives you hope if a team has figured out how to do that. Now, obviously, Baltimore, you might have an answer for that. And we do know divisional game, grudge matches, they always play each other really tough. So, Coach, you got something?
Yeah, well, and if you want to talk I mean, let's go with analytics on this right now, okay? And this is only 2 games, guys. We know that. Our offense was really, really bad. How good is Green Bay's defense? And then last week our offense was awesome. But let's talk about just their offense, okay? And these are 5-star wins for the Ravens, okay? So with the comparison in the rankings, the Ravens have 5 stars in these. We have a ton of comparison 2-1s and evens, but they're long passing. They have a 5-star compared to our defense. Their intermediate passing, they have a 5-star compared to our defense. Passing versus play action, they have a 5-star compared to our defense. Okay. Passing versus pressure, they have a 5-star compared to our defense. And let me throw that real quick. So just so you understand, the passing versus pressure, the Ravens offense is number 3. Our pressure is number 29. Okay. And again, that's so these are, what a couple other ones. I mean, there's passing versus, I already did that one. So there are so many of those 5-stars, and we have 5s too. I'm just saying that because of, and that's because of Lamar Jackson, because you basically have 2 Hall of Famers in the backfield, guys. We know that. I don't think either one of those two, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, are not going to be denied the Hall of Fame after their 5-year retirement. Both of those guys. So it's scary, and again, but I think our defense is a little bit better than what these numbers are giving us.
All right. Well, more about what we expect out of Baltimore as we get into that. Let's start with the injury report for Baltimore. James, what do you have on that?
Yeah, their injury report's kind of stacking up a little bit too. They've got corner Nate Wiggins with a groin injury. Whenever you have a guy in the secondary with a groin injury, that's not good. Kyle Van Noy, former Detroit Lion, who has been much, much better post-Detroit than he was ever in his Detroit career. Uh, with a hamstring injury, did not practice on Thursday. Doesn't look good for him. Patrick Ricard, they're really good bruising fullback, did not practice with a calf injury. So if he's not there to put him in front of Derrick Henry, I mean, those two guys coming at you is just a freight train. I mean, Ricard is a huge fullback. So if he's not in there, that doesn't help either. Matabuke, defensive tackle, didn't practice with a neck injury. So that would take another guy out of that rotation, another veteran guy. And then it looks like Isaiah Likely, he had a limited practice. I don't know that he's going to play. He was, by all accounts, was going to be a guy who was going to maybe play game 4 or 5 coming back from that injury last year. So I think it might be a little bit early for him to play in this game.
Yeah, Ricard, I read, is probably not playing. So off of that, James, and kids. I mean, again, who knows? We all have probably read 5 different things in that. So, but that's what it sounded like with him. So
Yeah,
it is.
so
He didn't practice Thursday, and it didn't
Yeah.
sound like it was just a veteran rest day, like sometimes it is with Taylor Decker.
Mhm.
all right. So what are we expecting out of Baltimore? Again, last week they barely ran the ball and they won, and they won by a lot of points. They put up more points than they did the week before. The week before they pounded on the ground in Buffalo, and they had that game until they didn't at the end. So, Coach, what type of plan of attack are you expecting out of Baltimore in this game from the offense or the defense?
I think they're going to come in and try to establish a run right away, especially after what Cleveland did to them. And they know that, Dan Campbell's talked. He said all the right things. We got to keep our alleys. We got to keep our, if we're inside alley, outside alley, we got press. If we're, and we have to play that perfect game. And so I think they're going to try to establish a run with Henry, try to get him going early. The other thing I noticed too, because how TA is being graded right now. The Ravens are also watching their film. They're not reading the PFF grade. They're watching the film saying, man, we might be able to exploit him. Lamar's been throwing a lot more of his passes, the deeper balls into the, or to the hash, to the out of bounds, to the side mark, not the middle of the field, but left,
Yeah.
right. I think you talked about that. So I think you'll see some them trying to do that. For some reason, I believe, because I'm looking back on that 2023 great trip, great time. We spent a lot of fun together out in that area. But once that game started, was the shorter passes. So which Derrick Henry and Derrick Henry and the shorter passes will try to bring those corners and stuff up. Then Lamar can hit those deep balls. So I think they're going to really try to establish. And again, your short pass is a run play. Really, you think about it. And I think that's what they're going to try to do with that to get it started. But I think the key is Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the key for every Lions game is slow the run game down to try and force them into passing more. Because even if you've got a great passer, there's greater room for error when the ball's going in the air and it's got to connect on the other end, especially when you've got Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph back there. So, James, what are you thinking we might see out of Baltimore this week?
Well, I'm kind of looking back a lot at the game last week with Cleveland, and I'm just comparing what, Detroit to Cleveland. Obviously, we all, I think that the Lions are a better team than Cleveland, correct?
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll go with that.
Cleveland, outside of the score, if you looked at that box score,
Yeah.
you would have thought that Cleveland won this game going away.
Mhm.
They outgained the Ravens by 80 yards. They outpassed them. They outrushed them. They had more first downs. They won time of possession. They were better on third down efficiency. They gave up fewer sacks. The only difference is they committed 2 turnovers. One of the hallmarks of Dan Campbell teams has been we do not turn the ball over.
Mhm.
So if they can avoid that, which they've done pretty well in the first 2 games. I think they've only turned the ball over once total in 2 games. Uh, I think that this Baltimore team is more beatable than 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, that's incredible to say because I think they're better than 2 years ago, the Ravens.
I think they are, but that's one of the other thing too is that everybody's talking about them as the Super Bowl, one of the Super Bowl favorites, and I think Dan Campbell is going to be in that locker room telling his team, "We're one of the Super Bowl favorites." And everybody's talking about them. Go out there and show them who the
Yeah,
favorite is.
yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he did something like that because this team, and again, they've done well the last 2 years until they got to they had some postseason issues last year, but that with Derrick Henry back starting as well as he did again, are the Lions going to bring up somebody more, put a fifth guy up there, try and do something to slow the running game down and commit more resources? We'll get to what the Lions are going to do here in just a minute, but yeah, the Ravens are a physical team. They're going to come in and be physical, or they'll be at home and want to come into the game being physical and kind of set the tone and show that, hey, they're just as physical as the Lions. I think both teams are going to be battling for that, and the Ravens are going to want to stay two-dimensional on offense, if not three-dimensional when you factor in Lamar Jackson's abilities. Guys, a reminder here, our show is sponsored by Roaster Jack Coffee Company in Traverse City. They've been roasting coffee since 1999, bringing in beans from small farms around the world. Order fresh, roasted to order coffee from roasterjack.com. And don't forget, use the code LIONS and you get 20% off. Okay, well, the Lions came off a 52-21 victory. What are we expecting out of the Lions in this game? Hopefully going forward and not sideways like they did 2 years ago, Coach. Like you said, amazing time out there until the game happened. And then everything just went off script, off the charts from the get-go. You got a number of same players from the Lions, but you have a lot of new ones too. And some of the ones who were there are 2 years more developed. They're not rookies anymore. It's a very different, very seasoned Detroit Lions team that's going in there. And so let's start there. Coach, what are you thinking we're going to see or expect out of the Lions here?
Offensively, we're going to last year, 2 years ago, and we can talk about that because it's very important. And that's something the Lions are going to build on. It was 28-0. I think it was 28-0, 1.5 minutes into the game. That's what it felt like. Right. And we went, and so the onslaught, the explosives, and I'm going to talk both sides on this because it's very important. We need to move the chains. We can't go 3-and-out. We can't go 3-and-out. I mean, if we went 3-and-out, I think it was 5 times in a row, something that seems like it was like 5 times in a row. And because you have to, that first quarter is going to be the big thing for us. And we have to be within reach after that first quarter, whether it's 7-0 or us 7-0 them, 14-7, something like that. And so I think that's one of the things we're going to try to do, offensively. We're going to try to run the ball because the longer we keep the ball and score, okay, the better off we are to win to keep it out of their hands. So, that's it. In a nutshell, really, we have to be within reach after that first quarter of onslaught by the home team. And that will put some doubt. Okay, that will put a little bit of doubt in the Ravens, even though they're not going to doubt it. But I'm saying last time they were here, it was 28-0. Last time they were here, Sam Laporta didn't catch a ball. Last time they were here, Mark Andrews had 2 touchdowns, the longest one in his career. I mean, there's so many last times, and the Lions are gonna. That's what Dan Campbell's got these guys ready for, is to not, to not let that snowball turn into a avalanche.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions came out against the Bears, play action pass right away. I believe it was the first 2 plays it was like that. But running the ball, eating the clock, using play action pass, they had long drives against the Packers. They did. They ate up a lot of clock. They just couldn't get touchdowns out of it. And so that was a big difference there. And yeah, keeping Lamar Jackson off the field keeps them from scoring. And so running the ball early, setting that up, and or just doing the play action to kind of set up both elements of it, I think is going to be big. On offense, James, what are some things you're thinking out of the Lions?
Yeah, a lot of what Coach said. They got to establish the run. I think that John Morton will kind of open up the playbook even a little bit more. It seriously looked like he was being pretty vanilla and playing coy against the Packers and unleash the full offense against the Bears. And I think you're going to see even more of that. You're going to see some more wrinkles here or there. You're going to see Taste Law incorporated into the game plan more. He, being a rookie, and then he missed a bit before that first game of the season with that illness, so they weren't able to put him into the game plans.
Yeah.
Really, the only day of practice that he made that week was goal line or was red zone. And so what did they do? They put him in the red zone and he produced a touchdown. So with a full complement and a whole week of preparation and last week, I think that he's going to be a little bit more involved, and he could be trouble for anybody, any team trying to cover him with your third corner. That doesn't bode well.
Yeah, for sure. And coach, so I got a question for you here. From week 1 to week 2, we saw a dramatic difference. James kind of talked about what he saw on the offense from Morton there, and there was such a big difference the way everything went. Now, obviously, you're on the road versus at home. It's the first game everyone's playing together versus now you've got a game under your belt, then you're at home. But were you surprised the drastic difference in the Lions offense between week 1 and week 2? And what did you see that was cleaned up? Was it just we're getting real basic with a lot of the things, or was it a better communication? Because it was like 2 separate offenses.
All the above. All the above. I think, and here's the thing is you said it, you've already said it. We open up the game with the play action pass to start. Okay. That immediately went off of the tendencies that the Bears probably came in with. Getting that into that second guess, getting that defense to go, now what are they going to do? It was the methodical, that first touchdown drive was just unbelievable. And I think that also the young pups, Pat got them into, if it's third and forever, now let's go back to the Packers game. It was third and forever, or we had to play catch up. And so, the anointed one, when he got traded over, I think I don't know if that's proper, but anyways, when he got traded over, he just pinned his ears back. Everybody just pinned their ears back because the Lions were playing catch up the whole time. We had a great drive and we didn't score. You even talked about it. I think it was an 8-minute drive. And did we get 3 out of it or nothing out of it? I think we might have got 3 out of it again. And I'm talking about the Packer game. So, so when you get a team off balance with your offense, because when they don't know what's going on, you're going to win. You're going to win a lot of games. And I was looking at this here, intermediate passing. Again, let's go back to that because this kind of all ties into what we did there. Our intermediate passing is number 2 right now, where the Ravens is 21. Now these are the 5-star things. We're 5-star on that. We're gonna look at that. And our play action passing is huge too. Pass versus no pressure. We're a 5. And so I think those are the big things that, you see, we see, and what we're going to try to do with the Ravens in that aspect. And that is if we keep them off balance, they're in trouble. Just like if they keep us off balance, we're in trouble. So
Right. Well,
go ahead.
no, I was just say, well, so adding more stuff back on the plate, right, Coach? You're
Yes.
probably confident they can start adding to it. So
Mhm.
let's go to the thing we talked about all training camp. I believe it's called 21 personnel.
Mhm.
That's Gibbs and Montgomery in the backfield.
Mhm.
Is that, I mean, we haven't seen it. So is that something you think we're going to see this season, or it was just talked about? Is it something that it's too soon to see? What are your thoughts on the philosophy towards this? And then I want to hear James's thoughts.
Well, I think that is going to be determined by how they think they can attack the Ravens defense. And does it give them by splitting out Monty, or keeping Monty in the backfield, or Gibbs splitting him out and keeping the other Monty, vice versa in the backfield, or spread out. How do and I don't know how the Ravens line up. Well, who are they going to match that with? If they're going to match with a corner on the running back, well, then one of the other wide receivers is going to have a nickel on him, or one of our tight ends is going to have a nickel on him. So that'll be where you're going to see that. That I think they're going to use it, and they have it for a reason. And again, I don't get to watch the Ravens defense like the Detroit Lions do. But if it's a plus for us by their coverage, then you're going to see those two backs on the field at the same time. Here's the other thing too, guys. We just got our fourth running back from injury. Vikey, we already talked about it, right? So we were a little thin at the running back spot. So it's coming. I told you guys that we used to practice, and Woody Hayes used to practice one new play every week until he played Michigan. I did the same thing in high school. We worked on stuff week 1 that we were going to use in work week 3 or week 4. Do the same thing on the college level. So it's coming. This could be the game they bring it out.
And then that would put, instead of the third defensive back, James, on Isaac Tesla, it becomes the fourth defensive back on Isaac Tesla, or some other variation of things. And so yeah, I guess you're right. They'll use it when it's going to work for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty excited to see it whenever it happens. I'm sure fans are, but James, you're still optimistic they'll do it at some point?
I think so. I mean, and if they come out in that look, the other team obviously is going to have to play a nickel. If you're going to spread them out, if you're going to have three wide and then the two guys in the backfield, the other team's going to play a nickel. And I like the Lions' run game against anybody playing nickel, or even if you put Laporta out, or you put Gibbs out. You can do all those things and force a team to do something on defense that you want them to do. And then you can take advantage of it and just pound them up the middle with David Montgomery or Gibbs. Even we saw it being very effective running even between the tackles last week. So if they can just force the defense to do what they want and then play off of that.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about the versatility of so many of these players on the offense, that allows them to change their plays based on the way their personnel is going to match up against whatever defensive look they're getting. Any other thoughts on the offense before we jump over to the defensive side, guys?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's start with what the Lions might do on defense. I think one thing they might try and do is try and attack the interior offensive line for the Ravens. Speaking with Pete Gilbert, after we got done with our main thing, we were chatting, and he did mention the interior offensive line is an area where the Ravens might be a little bit more vulnerable this year than the past. And you guys were, James, I think you looked at some of those stats, or Jerry?
Mm-hmm. What was the one, James, we were talking about?
The Voorhees,
yes.
Voorhees, the guard,
Yeah.
one of the lowest rated guards in the league after 2 weeks.
Yeah. And then, Fala Lila. I think that's his name. I think that's how you say it. Yeah.
Well,
even Stanley and stuff like that too on the outside, center wise, they're solid. So it'll be interesting to see what we do on that, especially if you looked at Tyreek Williams this week and they let him go a little bit. Lopez is another one of those guys. You got Wingo, you got Reader, we can press the pocket and we do a great job with pressing that pocket. The point with that is we have to be able to press that pocket, stay in our lanes, bottleneck, and keep Lamar inside that pocket. So we should have pretty good job with our interior guys on those guys with the run game. Because we're getting some pretty good knockback stuff last week. When you guys watched it, our D tackles were getting a lot of knockbacks. They were gaining the line of scrimmage, which is if the offensive line for the Ravens gain the line of scrimmage, we're in a lot of trouble, Henry, because that once that freight train gets rolling downhill, it's awful tough to knock them off the tracks.
Yeah, and really, both offensive lines are going to be really important in this one, as they always are, because Goff had a good amount of time to pass last week, and he was quite successful with that. So that's going to be a key if we jump back to Lions offense, is that offensive line holding up against the front defensive line for the Ravens. Conversely, the same thing, right? We want to keep Lamar from having quite so much time to pass. And surprisingly, believe it or not, Jared Goff has been sacked 4 times this year. Lamar Jackson has taken more sacks than Jared Goff. Just one, he's got 5. But that's a surprising number, I think, to most people to hear that based on just some of their scrambling and elusiveness. So, James, what are you looking for out of the Lions defense here? I know one of the words we like to throw around is crush the can. Putting pressure on them, but not running upfield so much and trying to contain, which kind of seemed to work last week. But what are you looking for out of the defense?
Yeah, when you try to crush the can, you try to crush it from the inside,
Yeah,
not the
there you
end.
go.
And that seems to be where the Ravens are the weakest on the offensive line. I mean, one thing that the Lions and the Ravens have in common in the last 2 years is they both had to replace Kevin Zeitler. The Lions seem to have done that a little bit better, I think, at least so far in the early returns. I mean, Ratledge last week was really good. I thought he was one of the other guys that I watched a little bit of video on, and darn, he was just pretty darn solid last week, and looked like a guy who's going to be playing at a high level in the NFL for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. A nice pull on the Zeitler move there, the
That's good.
back-to-back thing. I like that. Well, I do think the Lions are going to really try and stop that run, but that is also going to put a lot of pressure on the Lions secondary. And Coach had a great breakdown of defense here. Last week, Cleveland played 60% man against the Ravens. The Lions played almost 50% man against the Bears. And so it might be DJ Reed and Terrion Arnold and company out there really working their rear ends off and having to play a really good game, because the Lions like to force the one dimension because that gives you the upper hand in a game when you can do that. And if they can just slow down Derrick Henry and make it, to have to pass, and we know Lamar's a really good passer, but you'd like those chances versus the other. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Anything else before we jump over to extra storylines and then the ref report?
One thing too off of that man coverage, if we are going to run that, when you start putting your back to Lamar Jackson, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many. It's a catch-22, guys. There's so many things that can happen, and it's gonna be determined what's up front. One thing I'm gonna point out: we ran 49.5% nickel against Chicago. How much nickel did we run last year? Wasn't it like 12% or 10% or? Remember those numbers? I'd pull those up and say, we like to run our 4-3 base and stay in that base.
Yeah, but Coach, I think you're
Yeah.
more comfortable running nickel against DeAndre Swift than you are against Derrick Henry, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Because if we run, our nickels are pretty tough, but
True that.
that's a good one. Because we can bring Branch down there. So, one other thing too, defensively, are we going to force Lamar to throw the ball? And this is what I'm gonna watch. Okay, and you guys think about, are we gonna force Lamar to throw the ball to the middle of the field with
Right.
our 2 great safeties, because he's been spraying it to the boundaries?
You're right.
So that's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. If he's going to continue to that, not attack the middle of the field because he's worried about Joseph and Branch, then that's when we're going to be able to bring Branch down in the box or bring, like we did last week. So this will be an interesting one to see how they do that. And I can't wait to see this chess match because it's going to be a fun one.
All right, well, going along with that, I just want to point out, I think this is one of the Lions' two most difficult games on their schedule the entire year. Arguably, their most difficult. The other one for me is Philadelphia. Those are the two most difficult games on the schedule. This is a really, really good test for the Lions going into week 3. This is why we all said the Bears game was a must-win in week 2, because this is a very difficult task to achieve, and it's going to impact the narrative nationally, win or lose, right? If the Lions win, suddenly it's going to be Packers and Lions, Packers and Lions. If the Lions lose, it's going to be Packers, and then everybody's chasing the Packers. But do you, let's start with you, Coach, then we'll go to James. Do you kind of see it that way, Coach? Like, is this one of their top 2 difficult games, or, I mean, it's got to be up there?
Yeah, I mean, when we did prediction, I picked us to lose this game because I thought we'd be 2-0 going into that game. So now that we're 1-1, here's the thing with this game: win, lose, or draw. Long as we improve, long as we get better, long as this becomes a slugfest, a 15-round boxing match, it's going to be a positive for us. We're in really good situation with this, I believe. We don't have to win it to do our division. The Ravens, the same thing, but it helps. It helps with the NFC playoffs. And so I think it's, however this turns out, we just need to have a better showing. Let it come down to the wire, and whoever wins, and then say, hey, the team that lost this one, you could get a shot in the Super Bowl. And that's what the narrative is going to be with it if it's a tight ball game there. The
sure.
winner loser, the narrative, if it's a close game and if we win, okay, if it's a close game, we lose, the narrative is going to be, these are going to be could be the 2 Super Bowls, and they're really going to play the Super Bowl, and the Lions are going to get their revenge in the Super Bowl. So it's a win-win for us as long as we play football.
Yeah, and again, that narrative just swings back and forth like a big old pendulum there from the national media, James. I mean, everybody, like I said, jumped ship after week 1, and then they're all swimming back after week 2. And I know some of the Lions, personnel was kind of throwing some jabs at the local Lions media, which, I mean, I don't think most Lions local media was jumping ship. I think, there's a few that, are those outliers out there that they do what they do. But I think the majority of them have a pretty good pulse on what this seems like, and they're in that corner. But, what are your thoughts on the narrative coming out of this game and whatnot?
Yeah, I think it's as far as the media goes, I think it's it's the media's job to dissect a game, and they lost a game, and it wasn't pretty the first week. So what they're going to say is probably not going to be met well by the team, because they're gonna show you why you lost. So I mean, that's just kind of what they're supposed to do. Interesting thing is that the Packers in the first week played a lot of zone against the Lions, and it was pretty successful. And then the Bears just came out and played man the second week, and the Lions just feasted on it. So I don't know if that will be a thing as the season goes, but it was an interesting juxtaposition between game 1 and game 2.
Yeah. Awesome. Great observation there. James, can you take us right into the ref report?
Yeah, the Lions get the Bill Vinovich crew. They had the Texans game last year, the Lions game against the Texans, where Goff threw the 5 picks, but they still managed to win. But in that game, really, penalties were not a factor. Both teams had 4 penalties, which is not much. So this crew generally does not call a lot of penalties. They were the 5th lowest number of penalties among all crews in the NFL last year. So they just don't call a lot. What they do call a lot is false start. They called over 3 a game last year. The league average is under 2.5. But they do call holding at a lower rate than most of the rest of the crews, and slightly above average for defensive pass interference, but not really much. But those are their 3 that they call the most.
Awesome. Thanks for all that information. All right, guys, what's it going to take for the Lions to win this game? Coach, you've hit on a couple of them, but go ahead, summarize it, wrap it up for us. What do you got? What's it going to take for a Lions victory?
The 2 things: more explosives. Okay, we have to have more explosives, and we have to win the turnover battle. And
Nope.
that's it. Yep. More explosives in the turnover battle.
All right. I put down virtually mistake-free football, avoid the game going sideways early, which the way you worded it early was awesome, which is survive the first quarter, right? Because there's going to be so much emotion, there's going to be so much going on. Survive the first quarter and then win the turnover battle, I said, or at worst, push. At least at worst, push. James, what do you think it's going to take for Lions to win?
Yeah, the turnover one is the obvious one. I think pretty much every week, but I think it's going to be a pretty big factor this week when you're playing such a quality opponent. I think that they have to minimize or take away either Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson. I don't think they're going to be able to do both. You gotta try to take one of those guys out of the game. Hopefully the Browns gave him a blueprint for how to do that with Derrick Henry. And then you live and die with Lamar Jackson, forcing him to throw the ball. I mean, obviously running is he's he's lethal running the ball. He's still pretty good, and he's gotten a lot better throwing the ball the last few years. I think a lot of people around the league still don't really consider him a very good throwing quarterback, but I think that's kind of a fallacy. He's gotten a lot better in the last few years. Um, but I'm still would much rather see Lamar Jackson as a thrower rather than Derrick Henry just ripping off runs and having to have safeties and corners tackle him 20 yards downfield.
Oh, for sure. And every week is always win the turnover battle. But like you just said, this ref crew was Houston when we had 5 turnovers and won the game. But the caliber of the team we're playing is the margin for error is so small here that you actually want to be plus on that versus even pushing, because that will help you increase your chance of coming away with the victory. And then those red zone opportunities, you got to capitalize on those. So, okay, here we are, prediction time. Coach, to start with you, what predictions do you have for this game?
I'm going to predict after a turnover, after getting a turnover from them, we're going to take advantage of them and put points on the board each and every time.
Okay. Each and every time. So
Yep.
Points on the board, capitalize, something we did not do well against Chicago.
Yep.
All right. James, what do you have here? We're a 5.5-point underdog in this game. What's your prediction?
I think that Isaac Taslaw will catch a ball with 2 hands today or this week.
I like that. I'm going to say Jake Bates makes an important field goal. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to say a Jake Bates field goal. That is important. That's going to be my prediction. I was really struggling on what to predict, guys, and so I'll go with Jake Bates.
Preferably that one's farther than the one we lost to at Ford Field a couple of years back.
Would not be opposed to that at all. All right, Coach, any last words?
No, just looking forward to Monday night.
All right, James, how about you?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, it's not the longest minute and a half like you guys endured.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, folks, thank you for tuning in. We want to give a shout out to Roaster Jack Coffee, roasted incredible beans since 1999. Visit roasterjack.com. Use the code LIONS. Take 20% off your next order. And please tell your friends and family about the show. Find us on social media as well as all major streaming platforms. We'd love to hear your thoughts and reviews. Check out more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.